I had a weird thing. I just did, so I washed all the sheets yesterday.
Yeah.
Went down to the laundry with three pillowcases,
Amen.
walked away with two. Don't know
Really?
where the third one went. It's gone forever, as far as I can tell. I think what happened was while I was in the bathroom or something, a neighbor came in, snuck down in the basement, opened that dryer, pulled out one of them pillowcases, walked out very quietly, never to be seen again. It was a good heist. So that's the story. Huh?
Sometimes stuff gets stuck in the sheet.
A lot of time, yeah, oh yeah, a lot of times, yeah.
My parents used to swear that our dryer or washing machine was heating up socks.
Yeah.
Because they could never find the stop of it.
So that's the story and I'm sticking to it. Till I hear otherwise.
I was blaming stuff on my cat.
Okay, I've been looking at this. We've been talking about, we've been indulging my, space facts, I guess would be the way to say it, for the last few weeks. We've been talking about, well, it's not original. There's this thing out there called Shark Facts that I'm part of. I'm part of a thread that's called Shark Facts. So every once in a while I get Shark Facts. I get more facts than just Shark Facts, but I decided to expand it to Space Facts. But anyway, so we've been talking about these, what I've called, concentric realities that we live in above and below us and around us. And we live in the reality of perception, sort of the middle reality of the habitable zone. And, you have the reality outside of well, even our atmosphere is an invisible reality. It's, the Earth's core is an invisible reality. But anything outside the atmosphere, we can get a peak of stars, but there's stuff going on out there that we can't perceive. And then at the micro level, that's the macro level. At the micro level, we can see the modern scientific discovery or technology has allowed us to unlock and to peek into what we could never see before. And I was looking at that again, and I was going back over some stuff we've done on the origin of life, and I think it's worth talking about in the context of Genesis because, like I've said, Genesis chapter 1:1 is a gloss. It's a generalized statement for people who couldn't possibly understand, including us, what he really did when he created the heavens and the earth was formless and void. Even a formless and void earth, even that reality was a miraculous, magnificent work of art. If you think of the lump of clay, if you think of the earth as a lump of clay that then needed to be textured and engineered into something, the lump of clay is amazing too. But anyway, so I was looking at the cell stuff again, and here you have how do you say this word? What do you call it as a noun? Prokaryotes, I think. Anyway, they're the simple bacterial cells, bacterial animals, and the point is that they're one structure. So you can see there's no parts to it. There's no membranes that divide. It's not like a building where you have walls, so to speak, or different parts like that. It's just it's a single thing. And so here's the DNA, and you can see these various. You got a cell wall, and that's it, and everything is inside the cell wall. So that's as simple organisms, bacteria, and so forth. And then you have which are amazing. They're not simple. They use the word simple. They call them simple life forms, but anybody who thinks that's simple is either engaging in a gloss or doesn't really understand life. Then you have the eukaryotes. I think that's how you. What happened to? Oh, let's start over. I messed this up. Good thing I saved them. Eukaryotes. No, that is it. And this is a step up in terms of complexity. Not that the first wasn't complex, but this is us. This is the general. This is just a cell, in a complex structure, like a mammal. And so you can see the engineering of the pieces. It's of the various systems. Every single one of those is a system. that's both, it's a collection of systems that are interdependent on each other, interdependent. And then, of course, at that micro level, you go one step up and these cells interlock and are themselves interdependent with each other to form additional more macro systems like eyes and so forth. That itself is a system that works within a system that's interconnected with the brain and so on and so forth. You know, hearing is the same way with hearing. Think of the systems that go into your inner ear. The immediate response time, you see something, you're driving down the road at 75 miles an hour, deer runs across, the near instantaneous reaction that you have and the coordination that you in the impulse. I had this happen last year. I was driving back from a friend's house at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night he lives close to Williamston. I'm driving down Hazlitt to the west to my house. There's deer everywhere.
Mhm.
And so I'm driving down the road and I'm going 55, 60, Hazlitt Road. There's woods on both sides and I'm kind of watching, you know, because you got to, it's the idea that, you know, the old axiom, keep your eyes on the road. That's false. That's not what you do. You keep your eyes out.
Visually.
You process the whole thing. So I'm driving along and I catch the deer bolting and he's going to run right into the side of my car. And here comes a car. This is 11 o'clock. Here comes a car. And in that moment, you have to make this split. Your impulse, your split second impulse is to do this, to swerve to the left. So it happened within a quarter of a second. And my arm moved. My arms moved to turn. So the car jerked a little bit, but then I caught myself and went in the moment, literally in the moment. No, I can't turn to the left because there's a car coming. There's the center line. So I have to allow myself to get hit by this deer. And all of that processing from what I saw happens in the brain and then down to the arms and everything else, brakes and so on and so all that happens within literally a split second. And so I jerked just enough. So this guy saw me do it. He jerked slightly to the right and hit his brakes at the same time. All of that happened with two humans. Neither of us ever crossed any lines. So just think about the systems that were in place, all based on perception and instantaneous perception of sight of something that you see. It's unbelievable. But anyway, that's it. That's the interconnectedness of systems that you can see represented at this micro level that nobody can see with the naked eye.
So that word up there, nuclear envelope, makes it sound like, you know, we're an atomic bomb.
That's just what I was thinking. No, I wasn't thinking that. Anyway, but we're not done yet. You can see they've opened up the nucleus and you can see inside of one of the systems. The point being, the farther down you go, it's false that it gets simpler. It just gets more complex. It's complexity all the way down and engineering all the way down. So you keep going and you get to the cell nucleus. That purple thing we were just looking at. And here you have a cell nucleus. It's unbelievable. This is the complexity of a single compartment within a cell, which is unbelievably complex, which is which is a part of a collection of cells that goes in to produce something like an eye, which is unbelievably complex. An eye is not one thing. An eye is a retina. What are all the parts of an eye? I mean, it's, you know, but anyway, so there's the continuing down concentrically to in the micro sense. That's the nucleus. So we'll keep going. Well, inside of that, you got chromosomes. What are chromosomes, Laura?
They encode for DNA, or excuse me, all of the proteins you'll make you eventually.
23andMe.
Yeah, if you wondered where 23 came from. which I think they're out of business now because
They're not out of business.
They're
They're
not?
still in business, but they had a major issue.
so, chromosomes are pairs, correct me if I'm wrong, pairs of DNA strands, which is probably too simplistic. But the DNA strands come in pairs. And one of these strands of DNA, which is not a thread, it's a double helix. It wraps around itself. And it doesn't even really, this is artist conceptualization of a thing that wraps like this. They're not laid out like this nice little thing. That's for presentation. This is after they unwind the thing and lay it out. This is what they say it would look like. And it would be about 6 feet long.
One of those?
Yeah. One strand of one double helix. That's what I read. Contains 6 billion base pairs. So, oh, it's base pairs. Well, maybe this is it. Maybe this is, now you're down to simple, right? A chromosome is a simple thing. So you
Not me.
go down one further. This now you're into the double helix. And okay. That's the double helix, 6 billion base pairs. Something's holding the base pairs together, which I don't even know about. You can see the distances that they're talking about here. I assume 1 nm is 1 nanometer. What is a nano? A millionth? 1 millionth of a meter. That's pretty micro. But again, it's not laid out. It's not laid out like that. It's to save space. It's all wrapped up. But then if you were, I don't have it, but if you were going to go analyze at the micro level, a pair and how this connectedness happens, you'd be into another world of complexity.
I tell you what, if I were walking down that spiral staircase, I'd get dizzy.
Okay, so what's my point? There's this quote from Douglas Fatuma, who wrote a book called Darwin on Trial. Science on Trial? That Darwin on Trial was, no, that's Philip, what's his name, from the 90s. Science on Trial, where he's in kind of a self-perpetuating fight with creationists. And he made the statement, which I've quoted here before in the summer: why are creationists successful? Well, I can think of a dozen reasons. But in part because they offer simple, unambiguous, and certain answers to those who cannot live with complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty. I've never heard a more self-flattering attack on the other side than this.
Mhm.
Of course, he's the guy, in his quote, he's the guy who appreciates and understands complexity, ambiguity, and uncertainty, right? It's those snake handling, poison eating young earth creationists who live in the dark ages. That's how he caricatures the other side. Well, never mind the fact that a lot of those guys have 2 PhDs just like him.
Yeah, he does sort of insult them by saying that, Christians are not intellectual.
Creationists have the advantage of writing roughshod over all intricacies and details. Well, what has been my point? My point is precisely that the creationists are the ones who appreciate the complexity and detail. They present an appealingly black and white caricature. The lack of self-awareness here in this statement. Who's presenting an appealing black and white caricature? It's the guy writing right now, of science that makes few demands on an audience's intellect. So now we go on to the same book, which I've read. Now here's an example of his thinking. About dealing with complexity. Take any major group of animals, and the poverty of imagination that must be ascribed to a creator becomes an evidence. Now he's going to launch a personal attack against a creator who didn't know what he was doing if he did it, because he knows better. For example, all the peculiarities of various modern mammals are simply, remember his accusation, writing roughshod over complexity. intricacy, cannot live with complexity. So mammals, simply modifications of the structures possessed by primitive insectivorous mammals such as hedgehogs. What's a primitive insectivorous mammal? I'll tell you what it is. A massively, unbelievably complex creature. And these in turn are modified by modifications of reptilian features, which are themselves massively, unbelievably complex. If you ask, what would I have to do to the lack of self-awareness? What would I have to do to transform a primitive mammal into a bat or a whale? The answer is nothing very drastic. To which I would respond at this point, have you ever even studied the natural world? Have you ever read a book on human biology or any biology, cell biology, any at all? Bats' wings are merely elongated fingers.
Really?
That's what he says.
There's a lot of crazy stuff out there, Gary. Years ago, my husband's daughter's kids were taught in school, and this is the weirdest evolution idea I've ever heard, but they were taught that basically a cow fell in the water, and as it was struggling to get out, it had to develop a blowhole on the top and became a whale.
Oh,
And I just laughed, and my husband laughed. We've lived on farms. Cows have fallen in ponds. They don't get a blowhole.
Yeah.
They either get stuck, they get rescued, or they die.
Well, here's the thing. I'm not even attacking evolution.
Mhm.
I've never mentioned evolution.
No, I'm
I
just
haven't
saying
said it,
there
no.
is such.
No, I agree with
I mean, these guys. What I'm saying is, these guys that are saying they are so smart, they will come up with these crazy ideas, and they don't. People, if everybody still lived on a farm, nobody would believe that. You know, nobody would believe it.
I'm attacking Douglas Futuma.
Yeah.
On his own,
Yeah,
on his own.
I'm just saying he's one of these guys that would be so smart that they would come up one of these stupid ideas. Because the Bible says too, you know, thinking themselves to be wise, they prove themselves to be fools.
So if he was in front of me, I would simply say, I mean, I would say, Douglas, you have to see the irony. That in the
Of
same
course.
book, you accuse creationists of being simple-minded and not appreciating the complexities of things. And I'm reading your stuff and I'm going, it's like you're projecting yourself onto other people. Don't project what you are on me. That would be my point. But so anyway, we could do this forever, but
The complexity points to a creator.
It does, but he's ignoring that.
then we continue on. Just what the forces of natural selection were that directed human evolution are topics that have provoked enormous amount of quite irresponsible speculation.
That's true.
And the reason being because it's basically all speculation. It's a guess at history when there is no evidence. There is nothing to evaluate from 300 million years ago except rocks and bones. That's it. You don't have any soft tissue.
Yeah, weird.
So okay, we'll get it. Maybe we'll do some more of that later. But anyway, so here I am appreciating the complexity as, you know, a simple-minded snake handling creationist who speaks in tongues and, you know, is living in the dark ages with an intellect of 80 IQ or something. I don't know. But here I am appreciating the complexity, which frankly, I'm not sure he has. He's either, well, forget.
Well, I look at that and say, okay, these evolutionists think that this would just come together in a simple, you know, the way it's supposed to come together. It proves that the way they're thinking is.
Yeah, and like,
The intricate part of that DNA, the chromosomes and stuff like that, ain't just gonna, they have to have a creator to operate it.
yeah, and actually, I haven't even made the point yet. I haven't said a word about evolution or natural selection. I'm just taking what's out there, looking at it and listening to them talk. And here's an example of it. So we can talk evolution. I can talk evolution all summer long or any of that stuff. I'm really just talking about the origin of life without saying anything about it. And I've talked about this before. This is the Simons Foundation, and they, in 2015, they put out a notice that they were going to give a grant to study the origin of life. And the grant is the announcement is not on their website anymore. We have the result of something, I don't know here, but I do have the quote that I used. I sure do wish I would have saved, I sure do wish I would have saved the actual web page, but I didn't do it. But anyway, this is the announcement. This is 2015. The origins of life are among the great unsolved scientific problems of our age. So we are 1953 to 2015, 60 years. Did I get my math right there? About 60 years after the discovery of the double helix by Watson and Crick. Watson and Crick, is that right? It's one of the great discoveries of our time. We're now 60 years afterwards, and they're calling it one of the great. Look, I've been reading origin of life stuff for 35 years. Now I come to find out in 2015, after all these confident pronouncements that I've been reading about, that it's one of the great unsolved scientific problems of our age. In 2015, to advance our knowledge of the process that led to the emergence of life, so we're talking about the origin of life, chemical evolution, not Darwinian evolution, the Simons Foundation established the collaboration of the origins of life, supports creative, innovative. So what you need is, after 60 years, you're starting over. We need creative, innovative research that we've never done before. Well, that sounds like the research we've been doing has failed. So we need new, creative, innovative research on the origin of life, the assembly of the first cells. There you go. The advent, before you can even get to Darwinian evolution. We can't even get to Darwinian evolution without an explanation for how life could have originated in the first place, where you have reproductive life that reproduces. We don't even have, you have to have that to even have Darwinian evolution by definition. Darwinian evolution is about differential reproduction. It's the fight to reproduce. That's it. That is Darwinian evolution. That's the survival of the fittest. Those that reproduce the most, reproduce the most. That's the great tautology of natural selection. In the past decade, a small number of researchers have developed a systems approach to origins of life research that connects disciplines, so on and so forth. It is likely that answers to important scientific questions may come within the next. They've given us a. They've given a time frame here. Why is it likely? Is this wishful thinking? What makes it likely? Can you please write a paper on what we now know that makes it likely that within 10 years, we're going to understand vastly more about how life, about the processes of chemical evolution that led to the origin of the first cell. Making this a significant moment in the changeover. I think we're into a little bit of a word salad here. The changeover that results from an influx of new talent. What are you saying about the old talent? What are you saying about the old talent? These are not creationists. These are not creationists. These guys are all in on the naturalistic evolution of chemical and Darwinian evolution of life on planet Earth. New instrumentation and a growing global community of researchers. When I read this, I think they're saying something like, Is there anybody out there that might have some ideas? Because we got nothing.
This is great. Should want to go into the STEM fields. They were
Yeah.
probably expecting, since supposedly they were gonna get a doubling of people in the field. that They get more.
Gary, I liked your summary.
Thank you.
You're
Well,
welcome.
maybe with the women. Okay, the men didn't do it. So Laura's point was you had an influx of women into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math. The real disciplines of college, not gender studies and so forth. But yeah, there's been a large influx, with all these new people. That's probably what they're referring to. I don't know if they're talking specifically about women, but
Something like this to move very soon to continue trying, since there was such a big
Yeah.
influx that did change our job situation now too.
well, they can't, they're having trouble convincing their own side because the last poll results I've read from, Rasmussen, Gallup, Pew Research Center and so forth, over 50% of scientists believe in a higher power. So you gotta, and more like 30 to 40% believe in God himself. So you can't even convince, it appears to me you're having trouble convincing your own side.
Yeah. Now, there's two things that I'll comment on. First of all this proves what the Bible says, that the God of this world has blinded the minds of their eyes
Yeah.
to the truth. And secondly, I just want to start quoting Simple Simon. Simon Foundation. They're blinded,
Yeah, it's interesting. My attack isn't even, it's not even theological.
Mhm.
I'm listening to you guys talk, and you sound like a bunch of priests in a religion. You caricature Christians as part of this wacky fundamentalist group that lives in their own, self-delusion. And I'm reading the stuff you're writing, and frankly, you sound like the same thing. You sound like you're part of a little cult.
exactly.
Because what have we been told ever since, I don't know, forever, since Darwin? This is the way life originated on planet Earth. Now we're finding out, and this isn't the only one, we're going to read it something else in a minute, that I'm looking at your writing, and this is your club. These are people in your club basically saying we don't have any idea how life originated through chemical evolution. There's plenty of reasons for that. We can get into that, but that's what you're saying. I'm not saying it. I'm just reading your stuff. This is what I see. I could do this all summer. I have done this all summer. String together quotes. Once you start looking at it and what these people say. And I'm not saying they're not smart. I'm saying they have a self-affirming, insulated, they're not allowed to think heresy. It's like a cardiologist saying you shouldn't take statins.
Gary,
you
God calls it being willingly ignorant, right?
Yeah. In the world of cardiology, if you want to be a priest in the priesthood of cardiologists, you toe the line on statins. Period. Otherwise, you're cast out. And it's the same thing here. You just keep your mouth shut if you point it, so that nobody points it out. But anyway, I'm not saying anything about statins.
Yeah.
I'm just saying what I've observed from them.
Right.
Okay. Now let's talk about Miller-Urey experiments. Have you heard of these guys? Anybody heard of these guys?
No.
They're actually very, very important. Stanley Miller was a grad student in the 50s under this guy, Harold Urey, I think his name was. And in 1953, they conducted some experiments where they set up a mechanism to try to mimic the conditions on the early Earth, and out of those conditions form well, let's just read it.
Isn't it like amino acids?
Yeah, not proteins.
Yeah.
They synthesized 19 of 20 amino acids, test whether organic molecules could be created abiogenically, not out of biological systems. chemical evolution, let's see. Production of amino acids and other organic molecules, thereby demonstrating that chemical evolution is possible. Let's see. So here's the thing. Here's their diagram. This is their, what's that doing here? I don't want to see that. I never saw that before. How do I get rid of that? Why is it doing that? Never did that before. I guess we're not going to see it like that. So here's their experiment. And so, you know, what they're doing is they're guessing that these were the conditions on the early Earth. And, you know, there's a big elephant in the room here, and that is oxygen. They do not have oxygen in this
Oh,
glass, in the system. Why not? It's because if you have oxygen, if you have free oxygen in the system, what does it do? It destroys the very thing you're trying to synthesize. So what they have to assume then in the early Earth is that it was what's called a reducing atmosphere. There was little to no free oxygen in the atmosphere. I don't think there's any evidence that that's true. I don't think there's any evidence that the early Earth ever had a reducing atmosphere. It would still be hostile to the formation of these amino acids, but you don't need just amino acids. You need chains of amino acids that become proteins. And then those proteins, you got to do something with them and put more work into the system to do something. But anyway, so you can see at the bottom here, they not going to let me do it. This right here is the collection trap. Not going to. Down here at the bottom, you can see it right there. This right here. So the idea is that they get synthesized and then they get trapped. They get siphoned off and trapped. These amino acids that you're synthesizing. Why do they do that? It's because the very conditions that allow them to be synthesized also break them down. So it appears to me the experiment was designed to succeed. No such conditions would have existed on the early Earth. Not only that, but it has since the idea that the early Earth's atmosphere was methane and ammonia, I think has been discredited in favor of carbon and nitrogen or something like that. So this whole thing got discredited. And so they've done more experiments with carbon and nitrogen instead, and so on and so forth. But the point is, they've done all this stuff. This was huge. This was big news. Because what happened was it was sold as we finally have evidence of how life could have originated through chemical evolution. And this was the experiment that was used as the base. What you didn't hear, that was trumpeted loudly. But what you didn't hear trumpeted loudly was that basically this was irrelevant to an explanation for chemical evolution. And they've done more of these experiments and so forth. The point being, if this was so successful, then you would have follow-on experiments to take the next step. Why am I reading about how the Simons Foundation is calling the origin of life one of the great mysteries of our time? And they're not the only ones.
It appears as though they're borrowing from techniques that are used in industry.
So here's the title of an article from the University of Chicago, the very institution that the Miller-Urey experiments were done at. This is, notice the website, uchicago.edu, not .com. This is the University of Chicago. And the name of the article is The Origin of Life on Earth Explained. This is 2025. Maybe something happened between 2015. Maybe them Simons Foundation grants were put to good work and we've made some real progress in 10 years, 2015 to 2025. What did they say? Within 10 years, we're gonna get this problem under control. We're gonna understand this, right? So it's been 10 years. And now we have this article, The Origin of Life on Earth Explained. What's the first sentence of The Origin of Life on Earth Explained? The origin of life on Earth stands as one of the great mysteries of science.
That's explained.
All of which remain unverified, I like that.
Hey guys, I'm a young Earth creationist, and I'm looking, you're the ones that have all the knowledge and wisdom. I'm reading your stuff, and this is what I'm reading in 2020, last year. Last year, 70 years after the discovery of the double helix, and 170 years after Darwin. It's 170 years after Darwin. Darwin was 1959, published The Origin of Species, first edition.
1859.
1859, and now we're 2026. So, 2029 sounds to me like 180 years. Is that right? It's 170 years. 170 years. I mean, we're 170 years in. We got some pretty good technology. You guys have been at this a long time. You ain't getting no more evidence. You ain't getting any more evidence. That's all the evidence you're gonna get.
I stop and think, what a waste of money
Yeah.
for people to try to disprove the existence of the God Bible.
Well, I have no problem with studying with studying the early Earth and all of that's all fine. But the extrapolation, the drawing inferences from it on questionable assumptions, on questionable premises that are irrefutable. You're not allowed to question the premises of their theories. It's a given. Life evolved by chemical evolution. Do you know what the next, if not chemical, oh, that's in here. Is that in this one or the next one? We'll get into what are the possibilities for how life originated on planet Earth. We'll get into that in a second. I realize it's 9:57, but to me, this is just, I love this. So I know it's not, it isn't Genesis, but it is. One of the great mysteries, various answers have been proposed, all of which remain unverified. Find out if we're alone in the galaxy. So they're looking for life on other planets. I'm thinking, well, sure, but you can't explain life on this planet. So even if you find life on another planet, what do you prove? Are you proving chemical evolution? Because you can't prove chemical evolution on this planet. So why would you assume that if you discover life on another planet, that it arose by chemical evolution or any other kind of evolution? With water, chemistry, and temperature cycles foster chemical reactions that allow that right there. Is that true? Look at the premise of this statement. What water, chemistry, and temperature cycles fostered the chemical reactions that allowed life to emerge on our planet? What is the premise of that statement?
No God.
That life originated through chemical evolution. That's the given behind that question. It's not a question of whether, it's a question of how. We've solved we've solved the whether question. Yes, life originated by chemical evolution, or did it? Which we'll see in a second. Now we're going to move on and figure out how. It's exactly the same, importantly, as it's not a question of whether God created the heavens and the earth. It's a question of how. Christians take it as a premise, with a lot better evidence in my view, but they take it as a premise, foundational premise, that God created the heavens and the earth. My statement is, you people take it as a premise that the first life form originated through chemical evolution. That's your creation story. We have a creation story. You have a creation story. Why is your creation story better than my creation story? And this is what I'm reading. You're calling it a mystery. I know we don't know how it happened. I know it's a mystery, but you have to believe it. If you don't believe it, you're a ridiculous snake handling young earth creationist from the dark ages. If you don't believe that my story, which remains a great mystery, is what actually happened.
It involves circular reasoning.
Yes, it does. Are they the ones that talked about it in here? The details of those early events are not well preserved in the Earth's rocks. That's why I said that you're not going to get any more evidence. Let's see. Science have found traces of a form of carbon. So now we're getting into carbon, nitrogen, not not ammonia, methane, or something like that, I don't know. Where did life on Earth begin? They look very different from today. Early conditions look very different from today. Did they? Did they look very different from today? Why are you saying that? It was extremely hot, volcanically active, bathed in brutal ultraviolet radiation. Okay, let's go with it. Doesn't sound very hospitable to the formation of life on Earth. We don't have fossils from this time. That's why you're not going to get any more evidence. Now we're going to extrapolate. We can look at life forms that still exist today in similar conditions. But the problem is they already exist. So there's not evidence that they evolved in it. It just means they exist in it.
It takes faith.
What are the ingredients of life on Earth? You got sunlight, elements of importance for life. So here it is, right? They switched over. To me, this discredits the Miller-Urey experiments, which depended on methane, ammonia, hydrogen, and water vapor. And instead, we have carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and phosphorus. There are several scientific mysteries about how these elements would wound up together on the Earth. Yes, there are. So on, everything's a mystery. It's a word you hear over and over again in Origin of Life writing. Water, 70%. Okay. What are the majors? Here it is. What are the major scientific theories? Here's your chemical evolution. Here's Miller-Urey right here. Life emerged from a primordial soup. We talked about Darwin and his statement about a primordial soup, that there was a warm little pond with phosphates and various things and flashes of lightning, and somehow the first life forms chemically evolved in that environment. And that's the one where he says, what if, and oh, what a big if. That's Darwin. He was just talking hyperbolically when he was talking about a primordial soup. That was the best that they could come up with in their imagination. So that's what he's talking about here. Miller-Urey were taking it serious. Imagine a primordial soup built like this with their experiment. Turns out that's been rejected, that it was built like that. Injected ammonia, methane, and water, so on and so forth. Scientists now believe had a different chemical makeup, but I ain't ever heard in this literature that they've been discredited in their experiments. Gave rise to a new scientific field called prebiotic or abiotic. Great. A field of chemistry that bears, in my view, no relationship to anything that ever happened on planet Earth. What kind of scientist are you? Oh, I'm a prebiotic chemist. Sounds made up. Huh?
Yeah.
Sounds like what?
Gut bacteria.
Gut bacteria, that's right. Well, wait a minute, look at this. So there's option number one. Well, if that's such a compelling option, chemical evolution, why are we have number two be life was seeded by comets or meteors? In other words, okay, yeah, we can't figure out how these molecules could have arisen naturally on Earth because it was so hostile to such things. So maybe they got imported on comets and meteors already prepared, already in existence, and they came in on comets and meteors.
You mentioned that a lot of the scientists believe in God, believe there's a God and so on. What would it be like for a scientist? They come to this roadblock and they go like, wow, it has to be God, but they can't say.
You can't. So you go to church anyway. You're one of the scientists that goes to church. I know them. Molecular biologist, Kristen Davis. What's her degree in? Molecular biology?
Either molecular biology or that was one of them I thought. I'm not the one.
Yeah, they're all over the place, Anyway, You Chicago researchers, 1953. Let's see. All right, so that's that. That's my point. Stop using, if you're going to call me an idiot for believing in creation, stop using the word mystery about the origin of life. Give me your creation story in detail.
But they can't.
The math says, SciTech,
Going full circle.
the math says science says life shouldn't exist. New study challenges origins theory or theory of origins. Severe. We've talked about this. Study finds that life's origin faces severe mathematical challenges. We've talked about this before. One of science's most enduring questions, this is 2025. Most enduring questions. How did life first arise from non-living matter on the early Earth? So we're back to mystery again. The immense challenge of generating structured biological information under realistic prebiotic conditions when there is no life. How unlikely it would have been for the first living cell to appear naturally. And when they say unlikely, they're not talking about 1 in 100.
No.
They're the numbers. That's my point about any other life in the galaxy. You can't get there with 200 to 400 billion stars that each have at least 2 planets around them. Add all that up, and you can say, well, there's 200 to 400 billion stars, and we've got 2 planets per, so that's a lot of planets. That's a lot of opportunity for life to form. No, it's not. Not given we're talking about a 1 in what? 1 in 10 to the what likelihood? Because when you get that number, 800 billion planets in our galaxy is nothing in terms of probability. It doesn't make it, it's like saying, well, there's a 1 in, what's the likelihood of winning the lottery? There's a 1 in 300 million chance of winning the lottery. But if I buy 2 tickets,
Then you have 2.
now you have a 2 and a 300 million likelihood. Only imagine it's not 2 in 300 million, it's 2 in 10 trillion billion. That kind of magnitude. Let's see. The chances of success, let's see. Reach a real, think of it like trying to write an article about the origins of life or a well-written by randomly throwing letters at a page. Christians have been saying this kind of thing forever. Suddenly it's okay when they do it. It was Fred Hoyle who gave the analogy of the Boeing 747, which was the big jetliner at the time, self-assembling in a junkyard.
Yeah, that's great.
He was roundly criticized. He was attacked for that. Here we are, 2025, they're saying the same thing. Give me a simple sentence. We've done this in here. The odds that you're going to produce that simple sentence that I did, her name was in it, getting the right letter at the right place, when you have a 1 in 26 chance per letter, per position for each letter, chance of success become astronomically small as the required. It's not linear. If there's a 1 in 26 chance that I'm going to get the first letter right and spell her name, let's say, L, it's really 52 because it's capitals. If there's a 1 in 52 chance that I'm going to get the first letter right, capital L, what's the chances I'm going to get a capital L and then a small a? It's 1 over 52 times 52. It suddenly becomes, what is 50 times 50? 2,500. It suddenly becomes 1 in 2,500. Now take the third letter, U. 1 over 52 times 52 times 52. So multiply 2,500 times 52. Now you're into the hundreds of thousands. That's what they're talking about. Astronomically small. As complexity increases, it's parabolic. It's like it's not linear like a slope. It's like a hockey stick going up. Wow, I really burned the whole time. There's going to be people that don't like the fact that I don't care. So I might as well finish this out. By implying information theory and information theory is not the friend of chemical evolution. It is not your friend, information theory. Algorithmic complexity, there it is. There's that hockey stick, if I understand what they're saying. And this person analyzed what it would take for the earliest living cell known as a protocell to, which we have no, they're just using a name they're giving a name to a complete mystery. They don't know what it would look like. They don't know what its components would have been. They have no idea how it came to be. They're just going to assume it's there. To self-assemble from simple chemical components, this mathematical perspective demonstrates how improbable such a process would be if left to chance under natural conditions. Yeah, you just step away from God. Aren't you? You just step, how improbable through chance under natural conditions. Well, not chance and not under natural conditions. Through a designer by design, by an engineered system. Barriers. Findings indicate that chance alone combined with natural. Remember when I was talking about the Wistar Institute and that symposium in the 60s, which I still haven't found the article. I got to go to the library. And the mathematicians and the evolutionists were going back and forth. And the mathematicians were pointing out exactly this. It says, hey, the math doesn't work. You get this. It's just so it's so astronomically improbable. The math doesn't work on a planet that's 4.5 billion years old. Time is not your friend. And then the evolutionists accused them of being creationists because that's what they do. They attack you personally, and that's the ultimate insult. To which I think they said, you're just saying that life arose by special creation. Well, they didn't draw the inference, you did. They just pointed it out. You're the one who drew the inference. So they responded with, no, we're not. We're still on the team. We're still in the religion. We still believe it, even though we don't think there's any possibility that it could have happened. No. Chance alone combined with natural chemical reactions may not sufficiently account for the origin of life within the limited time frame of early Earth. There you go. Very honest article. Because systems generally move toward disorder rather than order, the formation of the highly structured arrangements required for life faces serious barriers. This does not imply that the emergence of life was impossible. No, it implies that it's virtually impossible, which is the same thing, but it suggests that current knowledge may be lacking. As identifying physical principles behind life's rise from non-living, so consider alternative ideas. What are they talking about? Let's see, speculative, boy, that's not a good word you want to see in an article like it, but logically open alternative, directed, what is this? So this guy, Francis Crick, one of the discoverers of the double helix. What is directed panspermia? Well, if you're appealing to if this guy and this guy are appealing to life might have been intentionally seeded by aliens, the aliens did it.
So get your tin hat.
Well, if you got guys who are saying after, that the aliens did it, they've given up on chemical evolution. They just gave up. The aliens did it. What aliens? We don't know. We don't have any evidence of aliens. But they got to be out there. Why? Because here we are. And the only thing on the other side of aliens is, I hate to say it, something outside the universe. You got, it happened here, it happened over there, and it happened outside the universe. That's your options. There's no other options out there that I can think of.
And because they refuse to worship God, he gives them over to the futility of their own minds.
This research doesn't disprove the possibility of life emerging naturally. Instead, it quantifies the mathematical challenges. Important step toward making the study of life's origin more mathematically rigorous. The universe's greatest mysteries. So yes, you can pursue life on other planets. That's fine. What do you think you will have proved when you find it? Are you thinking that you will have proved chemical evolution and Darwinian evolution? Because what you're saying about life on Earth it's a complete mystery. So the most you can say, if they find some life form on Mars, that didn't come from here by accident. If you find another life form on Mars, all you can say is, we don't know how it happened there either.
Yep.
That's it. Or Titan, or Europa, these other moons where they're trying to, or Triton, not, I don't know if Europa or not. They're looking for an ocean underneath the surface that's warm and, so on and so forth. So,
But you'll definitely prove you can get that grant money if you say something.
you get some grant money. All right. If that's not your thing, well, it's too late now. I just spent about 50 minutes on it.
Unreasonable likelihood of being worse than what-
Yeah. Yeah. It's a small step from life is extremely unlikely to it's a complete mystery to we give up. Unless they can find a video of it happening for, whatever 900 million years ago or whatever they're saying. I don't know. All right, let's go ahead and stop. Thanks for joining. Kay, thanks for your input. You're still there. Naomi and Nate, I don't know if you like that, but too late for me to undo it.
It's good.
See y'all.